November 4th, 1979. Right in the heart of Tehran, thousands of furious protesters stormed over the gates of the United States Embassy. Their target, 58 American citizens. The embassy security surrendered their weapons. And within just a few hours, 52 American diplomats and workers were taken hostage by the Iranian protesters. Their demand to the American government was simple: send the Shah of Iran back, or be ready to see your people dead. Amid this chaos, 6 American diplomats managed to escape through a secret back door of the embassy. For the next several days, they kept hiding, disguising themselves, moving from place to place. But with each passing day, the risk of being caught grew more and more dangerous. Getting them out of Iran alive was nothing less than a mission impossible. And this impossible mission was handed to the CIA, America's Central Intelligence Agency. That's when a bizarre plan was staged. The shooting of a fake Hollywood movie, with fake actors, fake scripts, and even fake posters printed. But this was no real movie. It was a CIA rescue operation. Its code name, Argo. By November 1979, Iran was already drowning in political turmoil. Just months earlier, in January, Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the longtime ruler of Iran, had fled the country under public pressure. For 38 years, his regime had survived with America's support. But ordinary Iranians had grown sick of him. The Shah lived in luxury, while his country was under heavy U.S. influence. Decisions were made in Washington. American companies controlled Iran's oil. And meanwhile, the people of Iran sank deeper into poverty. For many, the Shah was no longer a leader. He was nothing but an American puppet. His secret police, known as SAVAK, struck fear in every household, crushing all opposition. Amid this storm returned one man from exile, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, a religious leader who gained both the anger and the support of the people. He led the Islamic Revolution, and in just weeks, Iran's monarchy was toppled. The country was now ruled under Islamic law. The Islamic Republic of Iran was born. With this power shift came an explosive rise in anti-Western sentiment. To many Iranians, America was no longer just an ally of the Shah. It was the face of corruption and oppression. Protesters filled the streets of Tehran. They attacked embassies, burned American flags, and shouted anti-U.S. slogans. And when news spread that the United States had granted asylum to the Shah, the anger turned into rage. The demand was clear: send him back. To punish America, Iranian protesters devised a plan: storm the U.S. embassy and take hostages. And so, on November 4th, 1979, thousands gathered outside the embassy gates, chanting, climbing the walls, and breaking inside. The overwhelmed guards surrendered. Out of 58 Americans, 52 were taken hostage. But the protesters didn't know there was a secret back door to the embassy. And through that hidden exit, 6 American diplomats slipped away. They had no plan, no cover, no safe passage. Tehran had turned into a prison for foreigners. Even a single mistake, a familiar face in the crowd, and they would all be dead. They knocked on embassy doors, begging for shelter. Most refused, terrified of what would happen if the revolutionaries found out. Finally, Canadian Ambassador Ken Taylor took the risk. Defying his own government's hesitation, he sheltered the 6 Americans in his safe house. For the next 3 months, they lived hidden inside his residence. Never near windows, never stepping outside. These 6 were Robert Anders, a consular officer, Mark Lyjek, vice consul, and his wife Cora from the immigration department, Joseph Stafford, political officer, and his wife Kathleen, who worked in visa documentation. And finally, Lee Schatz, an agricultural statistician. The U.S. government kept their escape top secret. If word leaked, it could endanger not only these 6 lives, but also the 52 hostages still trapped inside the embassy. And it could bring violent attacks on the Canadian embassy as well. The mission was now handed to a CIA specialist, Tony Mendez. The CIA drafted multiple plans, smuggling them out in UN trucks, disguising them as locals, or escaping through another embassy. But every option carried extreme risk. That's when Mendez proposed something no one had ever imagined: a fake Hollywood science fiction film. The cover story was simple yet brilliant. A Canadian film crew was in Iran, scouting desert locations for a big-budget sci-fi movie. That gave them a logical reason to be in Tehran. And more importantly, it gave them a way to leave Iran legally through the airport with Canadian passports. The plan needed to be believable, but not suspicious. Real enough to fool Iranian authorities. And thus, the movie that never existed, Argo, was born. Mendez and his team built the illusion with painstaking detail. They rented an office in Hollywood. They furnished it like a real studio. There were phones, scripts, posters, even staff to answer calls. They leaked fake news stories to Hollywood media. Fictional producers gave fake interviews. Magazines carried reports of a new science fiction epic. If anyone investigated, they would find evidence that Argo was indeed real. A full script was written, designed specifically for Middle Eastern landscapes. It mentioned deserts, bazaars, and ancient ruins, making Tehran the perfect backdrop. Each of the 6 Americans was assigned a new role. One became a screenwriter, another a cinematographer, another a set designer. They were given fake Canadian passports, business cards, production schedules, and even glossy brochures of the film project. But documents alone wouldn't save them. They needed training. Tony Mendez drilled them in every detail: how to walk, talk, and behave like professionals in the film industry, how to answer customs questions, how to act confident at all times. Because if anyone sensed fear, the mission would collapse. By January 1980, Mendez himself entered Iran, posing as a Canadian producer scouting for locations. He had legal documentation and a Canadian passport, supported by official approval. When he landed in Tehran, no one suspected a thing. He met the 6 Americans in complete secrecy at Ambassador Ken Taylor's residence. There, he briefed them one final time. Every question, every scenario, every risk was rehearsed, because failure meant not only death, but international disaster. Finally, the day came. Tehran Airport. The group walked in like any other travelers. Confident, relaxed, speaking lightly in English with Canadian accents. But one problem loomed. Their passports had no Iranian entry stamps. Mendez knew this could raise suspicion. But with the chaos of the new regime, missing stamps weren't unusual. The only thing that could save them was confidence. At one checkpoint, a guard paused at the art director title. At another, an officer examined a visa for too long. But the cover story was too convincing. Their behavior too natural. The Canadian embassy was on standby, ready to confirm if called. Finally, the boarding call was announced. The group walked calmly through the gates, entered the Swissair flight, and took their seats. As the plane taxied, tension filled the cabin. Only when the aircraft crossed out of Iranian airspace did they finally exhale. The impossible mission had succeeded. In Zurich, U.S. authorities quietly took custody of the 6. No headlines, no official statements. The mission remained classified to protect Canada's involvement. For 17 years, the story stayed secret, until 1997, when the CIA declassified the documents. Tony Mendez himself revealed how a fake film, a fake studio, and a daring plan saved 6 lives. The 52 other hostages, however, remained in captivity for 444 days. Released only on January 20th, 1981, the day Ronald Reagan took office as president. The Shah of Iran, whose presence had triggered the entire crisis, died of cancer in the United States on July 27, 1980. The Argo mission, later nicknamed the Canadian Caper, became legendary. Canada hailed Ken Taylor as a national hero, and the U.S. awarded him a gold medal. But after the mission, the U.S. Embassy in Tehran never reopened. Canada, too, closed its embassy and recalled its diplomats. The story of Argo, once locked away in classified files, is now studied by journalists, historians, and filmmakers worldwide. And while Hollywood later made a movie about it, many details were dramatized. In truth, without the courage of Canadian Ambassador Ken Taylor, the mission would never have been possible.